So the idea that we're going to walk away from Ukraine, the idea that we're going to let NATO begin to split, is totally against the interests of the United States of America. So it's about time we make sure that Congress come home and pass the legislation funding NATO.
President Biden getting mixed up while urging House lawmakers to pass a $95 billion Senate foreign aid bill. He said, quote, funding NATO really meant, obviously, to say funding Ukraine. So the Biden administration putting pressure on lawmakers to approve more Ukraine aid, claiming the country suffered a major battlefield loss because of, quote, congressional inaction. Let's bring in Kansas Senator Roger Marshall. He's a member of the Senate Budget, Homeland Security, Agriculture, and Health Committee. Senator, good morning to you. We appreciate you joining us on this President's Day. Let's talk about this, because any aid that is going to be sent to Ukraine or to Israel or Taiwan, any border funding, all has to go through the House, who does not seem willing to take the steps that the Senate wants them to. Where are we now?
Well, look, that's up to the House what Speaker Johnson wants to do. I don't think they have the votes over there to fund Ukraine or Israel unless we secure our border first. But if I could, this is yet another example. This interview with President Biden is exactly why Putin does not respect Joe Biden. Putin does not respect the European Union nations. We have over 100,000 troops in Europe right now. Our actions show that we are standing up to Putin, but we need the European countries to put on their big boy pants. They need to stand up and push back on Putin, too. Look, if you're being bullied on the recess of grade school, you don't ask your mom to come and fight the bully for you. It's time for the European Union to stand up and push back as well.
Well, but Senator, let me ask you about this, because, you know, on the other side of this is former President Trump. He's running for another term, and he was criticized over the weekend because, you know, he made these comments which his critics are saying made it sound like he was encouraging Putin to attack NATO countries. Obviously, the funding for NATO and the U.S.'s role in the funding for NATO is a hot-button topic. But is this the time to battle it out with NATO and to address the funding, considering that, you know, we're now talking about Vladimir Putin in Russia murdering a critic, Alexei Navalny, let's be clear, and then also talk about the Russians taking out U.S. satellites and communication satellites with potentially a nuclear weapon. I mean, this has really escalated. So what does our role need to be and our funding position need to be with NATO right now, whether the President Biden can figure out if he's talking about, you know, NATO, Ukraine, or what?
Yeah. Well, again, we need to secure our own border first. That our number one most immediate threat to our national security is those 6,000 to 10,000 illegal aliens crossing our border every day, the 2 million gotaways that are in our country right now as well. Look, we have 100,000 troops in Europe right now. We've been training over there for decades, 70 years. It's time for the Europe nations to put some of their troops forward into Poland and those Baltic nations as well. They need to step it up. They need to ramp it up as well. We've already got a huge presence there. What President Trump is saying is time for the European Union, again, like I said earlier, put on their big boy pants and step forward themselves. Quit depending on your mommy to take care of you. They need to step forward as well.
Well, and to be clear, I mean, I think I brought that up because I think that Mr. Trump's comments were taken out of context. But anyway, I do want to ask you about this. The Senate is expected to hold the impeachment trial of DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas this month. Texas Senator Cruz joined Maria yesterday. He's warning that Senate Majority Leader Schumer is going to try to table the articles of impeachment. Watch this. I want to get your reaction.
It seems like all of the Republican efforts die in the Senate. We know what's going to happen to this impeachment of Mayorkas. When it gets to the Senate, it's going nowhere. Mayorkas keeps his job.
With the Mayorkas impeachment, you know what Schumer wants to do? He doesn't even want to have a trial. He doesn't even want to have senators vote on guilty or not guilty. In over 200 years of our nation's history, the Senate has never once tabled articles of impeachment. That has never happened. If Republican leadership in the Senate doesn't like the criticism, here's an opportunity to demonstrate some backbone. They could stand up and say, let's have a trial.
I don't know, Senator, there's a first time for everything. Is this it?
Well, I hope not. But certainly Senator Cruz is correct that Senator Schumer does want to table this. He does not want it to be the front page of the newspaper, so to speak. He does not want this to be the lead topic on all the media as well. So I agree with Senator Cruz that our leadership needs to step up and be as vocal on this issue as they were on Ukraine funding, that this should be the priority. Again, 10,000 people crossing our border every day, that the Secretary of DHS has broken the law. He broke his oath. He's not enforced the law. The law clearly states he should maintain operational control. He's not done that. President Joe Biden has paroled 2 million people illegally and let them into this country, and Mayorkas executed that order from the president. It needs to be front and center. That's why we have this process. Americans are demanding it. They realize that, again, this open border is our #1 national security issue.
I want to bring in Tana Ledesher real quick. You've got a fast question on the border issue, which we've talked about this morning extensively.
In the House, there's a bipartisan proposal in process for a $66 billion bill that would authorize more funding to Ukraine, Israel, not to Gaza. But it would, crucially, unlike the prior bill that I know you voted against, it would reimpose Remain in Mexico, which was the signature Trump achievement that secured the border. Is that something you would be interested in voting for, if that would secure the border?
Well, so I've not seen this bill. It absolutely, though, has to address at least two things. It has to address the Remain in Mexico, which is the asylum process, but it has to address parole. Right now, what we're seeing, again, 2 million people that Joe Biden has brought into this country illegally through parole. Under President Obama, only 5,000 people were paroled under his entire 4 years. So there needs to be policy changes with the parole, some type of quota number with that as well. We need to Remain in Mexico. We need a quota number of 5,000 approximately for the parole as well. At a minimum, it has to address those two issues.
Okay.